When I was growing up, my scalp used to bleed inside of cooking class. I vividly remember that I was in the 6th grade and people would tease me and point at me from across the room because I would have like blood and pus in my hairline. And at the time I didn't know what it was. I honestly thought it was acne, but I didn't realize that this was actually psoriasis. I never had major psoriasis or eczema flares, but as my brother and I got older, he actually ended up dealing with psoriasis in a horrible, horrible manner. Seborrheic dermatitis on the back of his ears, these large scaly plaques that impact his elbows, the back of his knees, his groin, his scalp, etc. And he has come to me with a lot of his problems that, as a medical esthetician, I can't help with. And I've tried to get him care with dermatologists and doctors who can. But still, I'm left with a lot of questions. And knowing that psoriasis and eczema can have genetic components, it wasn't until the pandemic, the panorama, the panini, that I got really stressed out and realized, oh my God, I'm having psoriasis and eczema flares too. It is something that does not impact me nearly as much as it impacts my brother, and things like psoriasis really can decrease someone's quality of life. But as I watch my brother struggle and get him new care and new treatment, and as I myself have my triamcinolone just to apply for when something does flare up and I get really stressed, I got to thinking, can I speak to the experts about what's really going on? And knowing that my brother has this on my scalp and I have been dealing with my hair loss, which we've spoken about in many videos, could my psoriasis or my eczema be impacting the hair loss that I'm experiencing? I decided to call up not just a dermatologist, not just a hair care expert, but a triple board certified derm who has expertise in scalp conditions, specifically psoriasis and eczema. Dr. Candrice is one of my favorite internet doctors. I adore her so much, and she agreed to speak with me about the different conditions of the scalp, about what other people and her patients go through, and about what does and doesn't work for the flaky, dry things that do impact many people's scalps, including my own and my younger brother's. Also, this is hashtag not medical advice, but you already knew that, so let's get going. Dr. Candrice, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Candrice, specifically when it comes to scalp health, when it comes to eczema and psoriasis, tell me about how you got started with some of these things, because I know that you've also spoken about, the experience you've had with skin conditions and your sister.
Growing up, I was blessed to have an older sister. I mean, of course, everyone loves to have an older sibling, right? To follow behind and mimic and do everything they don't want us to do, that we kind of annoy them. But my sister actually had something called nevus of Oda, which is a green birthmark that covers one side of her face. So although we had this relationship inside the home of being fun, and my sister really expressing lots of confidence, all of those things I went on to do as well because she did them first, I also saw the other side. As you know, kids, when someone is different, often that is not something that, the kids really adapt well to. So I witnessed people teasing my sister for her skin disorder. I witnessed people pointing or asking questions. So long story short, that really inspired my journey to become a dermatologist. I uniquely was able to be really in tune, and still am, with patients who have something on the outside that everyone can see that they're dealing with, and it really affects you in a different way. So that is what attracted me to the field of dermatology, that I would be able to insert myself not only to help people with their skin disorders, but also be able to lift their confidence as well. And that really is my favorite part.
That is amazing. I think every person who watches these YouTube videos has gone through, at least to some extent, that feeling of being insecure in our skin. But when we break down the biology of it, we're able to understand it. And it's not something to hate or dislike, but something to embrace and to work with instead of against. What are the differences between psoriasis and eczema? Because on the skin, to someone who's just looking down at their arm, or maybe their armpit or the back of their knee, these can look very similar.
So everyone has heard of those terms, psoriasis, eczema, but I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to really try to explain these things. They are both chronic conditions that can affect the skin. Eczema really is what we call an umbrella term So eczema in the medical field really houses a lot of conditions, whether it is atopic dermatitis, which means sort of a special eczema that happens in people who also may be prone to asthma or seasonal allergies. Also contact dermatitis, so someone touches something comes into contact with their skin and they develop a rash just in that area. But for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to kind of focus on eczema as atopic dermatitis, which is more of an inherited condition that produces dry, itchy skin that really can keep people up at night. It often starts very early. So a lot of my patients with eczema come in when they are just newborns, toddlers, and the condition is interesting because it is chronic, it can persist, but it often starts to affect our skin and body in different ways as we get older. Thankfully, a lot of patients outgrow their childhood eczema, but sometimes it does not occur and people have issues with their skin that persist into adulthood. So psoriasis, also a chronic skin condition, and psoriasis can affect any area of the body, but psoriasis loves to really make these thick, scaly rashes, loves the elbows, loves the knees, loves the scalp. And although it may look a little different in skin tones, it really does like to make these plaques, thick areas of the skin that just stay there, including the scalp. So that is why, we're talking about both eczema and psoriasis of the scalp today, because, the scalp is actually a common location for those. I can't help but also emphasizing that we know a lot about psoriasis now, way more than we used to. And sometimes psoriasis can actually be associated with arthritis, so joint pains. It can also be associated with diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So yes, it is a skin disease, but we as dermatologists, we're also supposed to make sure that we're looking beyond the skin disease to say what else can affect my patient that has this skin disorder. And in the case of psoriasis, automatically I think about those other things. So it can go from, oh wow, I have a scaly thing on my skin, to saying, wow, my risk of other chronic diseases is more because of this skin condition.
And especially when it comes to, these psoriasis plaques or these eczema flares on the scalp, how does psoriasis or eczema impact things like hair growth, how hair is able to be healthy and strong, or, hair loss, breakage, etc.?
When anything is going on with the scalp that involves scale, it can be embarrassing. So the first thing that people do when they wake up in the morning is they try to camouflage the area. So they may shampoo the scalp, or they may apply medications. They may apply something to try to camouflage the scaling, but often people begin to pick the scales away. And both of these conditions, seborrheic dermatitis and psoriasis, guess what? When you're picking off the scale, you can rip out hair with that as well. And often this removal of scale is really a huge part of people's hair care routine. So they are really shocked when I say, okay, you have psoriasis. We have to do some things to help to keep this under control. But if you are manually scraping and removing the scale, if you have psoriasis, a special phenomenon begins to come in play called Kepner phenomenon. What that means is the skin says, the more you traumatize me, the more I'm going to protect myself and build up more skin. So that explains why if you have psoriasis of the scalp and you spend all this time removing all the scale, you go through your wash day routine, you're doing all of those things, it looks great for 2 days, and then that scale is coming back and says, oh no, I am reclaiming my position. So that is what the Kepner phenomenon is. The more you traumatize it, the thicker it becomes. So we have to be very strategic about addressing psoriasis of the scalp to keep the patient happy and confident, but to also really go ahead and attack the underlying issue, which is psoriasis in a lot of those cases. Now we need to think about ingredients that's going to keep that scale to a minimum. And so an example of that is something that contains salicylic acid. That's great. You may have think about that ingredient as something that helps with acne, but also it can be helpful to keep that thick scale down and bring it down to a minimum. But of course, I see the cases that may not be under good control just by using over-the-counter medications. What I think about doing when patients come in is first to make a diagnosis about what they have, but it often includes a topical medications that can help to reduce inflammation. One of those things may include a topical steroid medication that can be used both in the case of seborrheic dermatitis and psoriasis. And then also because psoriasis typically has that thicker scale, remember we were talking about using salicylic acid containing products. Well, now as a prescription, I can also give products that have calcipotriene in them. It is a vitamin D derivative. Remember, vitamin D is our friend. And so vitamin D, we use it in various things in medicine, but this is a vitamin D derivative that helps to slow that thick plaque regrowth that can happen on the scalp in those who have psoriasis. But this is a space that really, we have not had lots of any, new medications that have come out for seborrheic dermatitis in quite a while. So I'm happy about all of the renewed interest in this area, both scientifically and from the public as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insights with me and with everyone else. I feel this is so enlightening. You have untangled so many questions for me. I would love to know, where can people find you online if they want more information?
Sure. I am Dr. Candrice, your fun, favorite, triple board certified dermatologist. I'm your go-to girl for everything healthy hair, skin, and nails, and I can be found on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Candrice Heath. I will see you in the internet streets very soon.
Awesome. Dr. Candrice, thank you. We adore you. I love you. And yes, I will see you on the internet. Dr. Candrice has untangled so many questions that I've had. I really hope that I can take this information back to my brother to help him a little bit more. Maybe he can bring it to his dermatologist to ask about. I hope that I can implement some of these things on my own. Let me know what questions you have in the comments. Hit Dr. Candrice up on Instagram and let her know what questions you have, because she has so much knowledge that I do want to speak to her again very soon. Always remember to stay hydrated, both orally, topically, and scalpally. Always reapply your SPF up to your hairline and in your hairline if you've got your scalp exposed, and always be beautiful both inside and out. I love you, and I can't wait to see you in this next video.